All right, let's talk about slope-intercept form. And we know that when we're talking about slope-intercept form, we're talking about an equation of a line. So let's take a look at that. And here we go. Slope-intercept form looks just like this, where we have the letter y. Sorry about that. We have the letter y here, n equals mx plus b. Now it's important to notice that the reason that it's an equation of a line is because it has a y and an x. Sometimes it'll have just a y or an x, but you're always seeing those two variables in the slope-intercept form. What usually is replaced in this form is what's called slope, and that's that m there. M represents slope, and some of you might remember about slope being that we have, some of you might remember this formula, y minus y, y2, y1, x2 minus x1, okay? And we call that the change in the y divided by the change in the x, okay? But I'd like to think of it more this way. Some of you might remember it this way. It's really rise divided by run. And that's going to be actually more handy for us today than any other time when we're working on slope-intercept form. Now the other part of slope is the y-intercept. Now this letter B here that we're looking at here, this B represents the y-intercept, and that's where the graph crosses the y-axis. So we have to remember about things like that and think about how that all works. So let's take a look at a graph to remind you about different things. Here we have the y-axis. This is the one that goes up and down. And this is the x-axis. It comes across. Here I have a line that's being drawn on here, and we can see that this is crossing in two different places. On the x-axis, it's crossing at -1. At the y-axis, it's crossing at +1. This is what we're concerned with when we're using slope-intercept form, is that we're using the y-axis. So let's try and put together an equation, because that's part of using slope-intercept form, is to help us to write an equation. So that's what we're going to do right now. So let's take the equation form, y equals mx plus b. And what we're going to do is we're going to take things and we're going to change them a little bit. So if I take this m equals 3, I'm going to replace that in place of the m. Same is true here with this b equals -2. I'm going to replace it right here in that spot. So when I do that, what I'm going to do is just rewrite this equation with these numbers in place of the m and b. Y equals 3x. And we could put plus minus in here, but we really don't like that very much. So we try to just try and keep only one symbol in there, because a lot of us want to think, hey, plus minus 2. But we know that a positive times negative is a negative. So when we're looking at our final answer of writing an equation of a line, what we're going to look at is y equals 3x minus 2. And we've written the equation of a line with the information that we're given. Okay, we're going to try it again with the information that we're given. So here we go. Here we have an example 2, slope equals 1/2, and the y-intercept equals 2. Again, we're going to take that slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and we're going to replace the information we're given and put it in. Now sometimes we don't get it as simple as this. Usually it shows up and tells us that slope, they'll give us information, say the slope of the line is 1/2. And then they'll also tell us, and they'll say, and the y-intercept is 0, 2. Okay, well, it's pretty much telling us the same thing here, because if you think about it, it says slope is 1/2. That's what we have here, m equals 1/2. The y-intercept is 0, 2. Well, that's what the y-intercept is, because if we remember on a graph, the x is 0 in order to cross the y-axis. So if you get it in this format, it's still telling you this in your head is how you should think about it. So let's replace it. So we get y equals 1/2 x plus 2, and we've written an equation of a line. One here. Again, slope equals -5, and the y-intercept is 2/3. So we're going to write y equals, we're going to put our slope in there, negative 5x plus 2/3. And we're done writing an equation of a line. So now let's look at it a little differently and see if we can do some graphing. How can we use this to help us graph a line? So, oops. Oh, here we go. Before we get to that, let's talk about which is easier to use when plotting a graph. Plotting points or using slope and y-intercept. And we're going to use this equation here, y equals 2x plus 3. Now, on the left here, you'll notice I have a table of values. That's what this is called. And if you remember how to use one of those, what you would do is you would put numbers in the table, and then you would plug them in and see what you would get for the other variable. So let's plug that in. So y equals 2 times 0 plus 3. Well, 2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. We put that there. Do the same thing for the next one. Y equals 2 times 1 plus 3. And we get 2 times 1 is 2 plus 3 is 5. And do it again for the last one. Y equals 2 times 2 plus 3. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 plus 3 is 7. Then we know each of these in the table of values represents an ordered pair. So we're going to plot 0, 3, 1, 5, and 2, 7. Okay? And then we would draw a line through our points. Hopefully a nice steady line, better than mine. And draw arrows. Okay, now, as we can see, in doing all of this, we could have some serious problems, couldn't we? So we could maybe do some wrong math, maybe plot our points wrong, all kinds of things can go wrong. Okay, but it's also a lengthy process. So let's talk about it, maybe an easier process when we look at this equation. Because it's in this format, remember the format. Format is y equals mx plus b. I can look at this equation and just take information from it and be able to graph it. So let's write down that the slope equals 2, because we can see that in the equation. And the b, or the y-intercept, equals 3. Okay, now we should be able to graph straight from this. So we can go to 3 on our graph at the y-intercept and put a dot right there. And then we just have to remember about slope. Slope is rise over run. So we need to make 2, that integer, into a fraction. So all integers are over 1. So that gives us our rise or run. So then if we think about that, we can start here at 2, and then we're going to start at 3, and then we're going to rise 2, so 1, 2, and then run 1, and there we are, right on the line, and we're going to put a dot there. And as you can see, we're going to end up in the exact same place and be able to draw that line. So we can use slope and the y-intercept for a much quicker, faster way to graph a line. So let's practice that. So here we have y equals 2x plus 5. So what we'll do is we'll get our information. So we know that slope is 2 and the intercept, the y-intercept, is 5. Well, here we go. We're going to put a 5 on that y-intercept, and we know that slope is rise over run, so we're going to put a 1 underneath that. But look what happens. We can go up 2 and over 1, and we're kind of off the graph, aren't we? So there's something else we can do then. We can kind of convert this and make an equivalent fraction with the same numbers, but change the signs. So it means the exact same thing, because we know that a negative divided by a negative is going to give us a positive. So negative 2 over 1 is the same as positive 2 over positive 1. So from here, what we will do is we'll start here at the 5, and we'll go down 2 and to the right 1, and we'll put our dot right there. Okay, and then we'll draw our line. And as you can see, again, if I drew a better line, that's where we would have ended up had we gone up 2 and over 1. We would have ended up on the line as well. So instead of going off, we can go into the other direction. Okay, let's try it again. Y equals negative 3x plus 4. We find that slope is negative 3, and the y-intercept is 4. So we start at 4. And again, because this integer is in need of a denominator, so we have negative 3 over 1. So from that 4 spot, we're going to go down 3. So we're going to start here, go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to move to the right 1. Put our dot, and then we're going to draw our line through those points. Okay, and we've just graphed our line. Now what's really cool, and hopefully you're going to kind of key in on this, is something really cool is going on. Okay, always when we're going to be doing the numerator, we're always going to be going up or down. That's going to be up for positive, down for negative. When we do the denominator, we're always going to be going to the right, because when a fraction is negative, that denominator is always positive, and when it's a positive number, it's always positive. So we're always going to be moving to the right when we graph. It's just we have to worry about that numerator, whether we're going to go up or go down. Okay, now this one's a little bit different in that we need to rearrange this equation so that it's in the right format. Remember, our format is y equals mx plus b. So we have to get into that format. So what we need to do is rearrange everything. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 3x from both sides to just try and isolate the variable of 4y using inverse operations. 4y equals negative 3x plus 8. And I chose to put the x term first so that it looks like the format. So that when we look the same, then we know where we're going. And because this is a positive 8 right here, because we're going to write plus 8 here. Okay? So then we're at this point, and we need to get that y by itself still, because remember, we're trying to get y equals, not 4y equals. So we need to get rid of the 4. Inverse operations would be dividing by 4. So we'll divide everywhere by 4. And then we can't do some canceling here. We'd end up with y equals negative 3/4 x. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So now we're in the right format, where this format matches this format. So from here, we can get some information. So let's do that. And what we'll do is we'll say m, or slope, equals negative 3/4. And the y-intercept, or the b, equals 2. Now, the y-intercept is where we're going to begin. We're going to begin at 2, so we're going to put right there at 2. And the slope is how we're going to move from there. So we're going to go down 3. Okay, so we're going to go starting here where we begin. We're going to go down 3, negative 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to go 4 positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to put a dot right there. Okay, so now that we have our dots there, then we're just going to draw our line through those dots. And remember to put arrows on the ends. That kind of tells it keeps on going forever. Doing this rearranging. Okay, so we're going to, oops, get my pen here. We're going to separate our sides. Again, we want it to look like y equals mx plus b. This time we're going to add 6x to both sides. And then what we're going to do is this 6x will go away. And we'll get 2y equals 6x minus 8. And again, we're going to put that x term first because we want it to look similar to our format. Then divide everything by 2. And then we get y equals 3x minus 4. We're going to get our information from this. So let me get another color here. Okay, so m, or the slope, equals 3. And the y-intercept equals negative 4. So we're going to go to negative 4 because that's where we begin. We begin at the y-intercept. Our slope, how we move, needs to be done as a rise over run. So from here, from this negative 4 spot, our slope here says 3/1. So from here, we're going to go positive 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to go positive 1 to the right. And we're going to put a dot right there. And then we're going to draw a line and go through and put arrows on the ends. And now we have a line. Now I'm going to show you one more thing, which is a little bit different. What happens when you need to make an equation of a line, but you don't get all the information? We got slope, but we have a point. And if we think about it, if I was to graph the point 10, 3, that's going to be way off here somewhere. That's not a y-intercept, and we need a y-intercept in order to use the formula of y equals mx plus b. So let's kind of evaluate what we did get. Well, we got the m, which is great, that goes here, but this here is not a b. This is an x and a y. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace in the equation everything we know. So in place of the y, we got a 3, so we're going to put a 3 there. In place of the m, we got 2 over 5. In place of the x, we found 10, and we know that when variables are right next to each other, that means to multiply. And we do not have a b. We do not have a y-intercept. So we're going to solve for that y-intercept to get some information. So we're going to put a 1 underneath that 10. And we know that 5 goes into 10 2 times. So let's simplify this. 3 equals 2 times 2 is 4 plus b. We need to isolate the variable, get the b by itself. So using inverse operations, we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. And we find out that b equals -1. So now what we're going to do, we're going to tie all this together. Okay, so we're going to take this b equals -1 and this slope of 2 over 5. And we're going to write ourselves an equation. We're back where we were at the beginning. So we're going to write y equals 2/5 x minus 1. I hope that this helped and that you could figure out some things about slope-intercept form.